Hi guys, it's Kelly again. So when I told people that I was going to tell everyone about all my jobs, then almost everyone said you should tell them about all the guys you've dated. And I thought, I'll give them a little break. But then I thought, break's over, and I should tell people about all the guys I've dated. So I thought about the very first guy I dated and why I dated him and how it went and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I can't tell you about that unless I tell you a really sad, really personal story that is kind of scary to share. So, my summer before my freshman year in high school, a guy that was going to be a senior in high school date raped me. And I know that's happened to more people than it should have. And he then went to the same high school as me and told everyone a lot of really mean things about me and passed around a lot of rumors, and everyone believed him. And I was bullied, and I didn't want to go to school anymore. And every day that I went to school, I would just walk out because people would threaten to beat me up, or they would be really, really mean to me. And I lived walking distance from the high school, and I just started walking home. And I got so depressed. I just didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to do anything. And my uncle, that's a doctor, suggested that I go to a psychiatric hospital. So I went to a psychiatric hospital in Leesburg, Virginia, for between 4 and 6 weeks. While I was there, I had a lot of counseling and I met some friends and things like that. And then when I got back, my IEP said that I should go to an alternative school. So I was at an alternative school for the rest of my high school years, because back in the 90s, when you went to an alternative school, you were just there. You were just at the alternative school for the rest of the time. So I'm at the alternative school, and there was this really hot guy there, especially because I liked music like Poison and Guns N' Roses and Skid Row and Bon Jovi. And there was this guy that had long hair, and he always wore a baseball hat backwards, and he was so hot. And his name was Alan Graveline. I can say that because I can't even find this guy on Facebook. And Alan, if you look good and you're single in your 40s, definitely add me. Anyway, I thought that guy was so hot, and I really wanted to get to know him, but I had not much confidence and not much self-esteem after the things that had happened to me. So the whole 3 years, because Alan graduated the year before me, I was never really able to say anything to Alan. All I could do was giggle when I saw him or talk really loud to my friends in the hall, which unfortunately sometimes I still do. Like, oh, there's a guy I'm kind of interested in. I should talk to people really loud, because then they'll be like, that girl is so funny and interesting. I totally want to date her. That's never happened. Usually they're like, whoa, yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go. That girl talks too much. Whoa, or too loud. So anyway, I never dated Alan Graveline. And there was another guy in Alan Graveline's group of friends named Brian. And Brian asked me out. And I wasn't really attracted to him. He had a mullet. And I just wasn't attracted to him. But I said yes because he was friends with Alan Graveline, and it's like I was kind of like almost to Alan. And also it was a guy that asked me out, and I didn't know how to say no thank you. So anyone that watches this, you can say no thank you. You don't have to go out with guys that you're not attracted to. You don't have to. And I didn't understand anything about sex, or when to have sex or when to not have sex, or anything like that. Like, it seemed like everybody was having sex. And so I just said, well, I am not ready to have sex. And he's like, that's okay. But then I'm like, okay, sure. So not then. So then he took me on my first date to a place that's not even there anymore. And it kind of ages me saying this, but he took me to a place that was basically an arcade with just video games. And this guy was really good at video games. So he would just stand there and proceed to play said video game for however long. And I just stood there while he played video games. And I'm like, okay, all right. And it makes me wonder, like, I know I'm not the only woman that has done or does stuff like that. You know, like, sure, yeah, I totally want to watch the BYU versus U of U football game. Of course I do. Things like that. Yeah, I'm totally into that. So anyway, I just would stand there. Nowadays, if someone wanted me to go to something like that, first of all, no. Second of all, they can play their own video games to their heart's content at their house nowadays. But if someone wanted me to go to something like that, I can bring a book, I can read. I mean, now I'm so tacky that I would probably bring a chair there. And when the video game place was like, what are you doing? I'd be like, well, I'm bringing a chair because I'm not going to stand here. And sometimes that guy would be generous and give me like 4 quarters and be like, here, go play. And then like maybe 5 minutes later, I would come back and be like, oh, I'm done. And he's like, how are you done? And I'm like, well, I used them on. He's like, how did you use them on? I'm like, well, I died. Like, I'm not good at video games. I died, and here I am. I'm back, and I have no money. And so anyway, I didn't know how to say, you took me on a horrible date. I really didn't need to say that, but like, hey, dude, I'm not really attracted to you. I didn't like this date, and I didn't have fun. I didn't know how to say any of that. I didn't have confidence. I'm just like, well, here's a guy. And that's kind of like how my parents' marriage, I feel like, is like, oh, okay, sure. You know, so maybe that's where I got it from. And so ultimately, I lost my virginity to him, and not for any special reason. Like, I think I've basically zoned out, like, when any of that kind of stuff happened, maybe because of what had happened to me before. I wasn't able to really be in the situation or really assess that that was happening to me. And that was a choice I made, and that was a big choice. And one day I overheard him. He was smoking outside of the school, because back then in the 90s, people smoked cigarettes just like on the steps and no one said anything. And he was but it was an alternative school, so it's like an alternative school, you got to pick your battles. So anyway, he was smoking outside on the steps, and I was walking out there, and someone's like, hey, are you dating Kelly? And he was like, yeah, because her friend Beth was not available, so I'm dating her. And I was like, well, you aren't anymore. Bam. And that was probably the last time I was able to say that to a guy, which is really embarrassing. So I guess we'll have to hear about that part in guy number 2. So that's guy number 1, and a really sad story.